Welcome to this MIGe Diagnostics podcast, where we dive into a fascinating world. This time, endoscopy using a camera in a capsule. Today, I'm joined by Professor Epstein, a leading international expert in capsule endoscopy, to discuss this new approach to investigating the bowels. So, Prof, let's get started.
Oh, well, thank you for inviting me. I'm really pleased to share my insights on this innovative and minimally invasive technology.
So, to start, can you explain what colon capsule is?
Well, it's a remarkable new imaging device, just a little larger than a jelly bean, and it's equipped with tiny cameras. And after swallowing the camera capsule with a few sips of water, the miniature device captures video images of the entire inner lining of the digestive tract, all the way from the esophagus to the rectum.
And that's around 25 feet of intestine.
Yes. Capsule produces a video of the stomach, small intestine, and the colon, which is the region of the intestine we are especially interested in examining.
And how is the capsule propelled?
Well, once swallowed, the capsule advances through the bowels in the same way that food does.
So, unlike traditional fibre optic endoscopy, there's no need for physical connection between the camera and the outside world.
Indeed. And once the video has been transmitted and captured on the recorder, which is worn by the patient, it can then be downloaded to a computer for later review.
So, who are the ideal candidates for this procedure?
Well, capsule can be considered as a drone, surveying the landscape for abnormalities. Consequently, it's particularly suited for individuals who require imaging of their digestive tract, but have a low likelihood of needing intervention using a traditional colonoscope.
You mean it scans the intestines and helps decide who needs a more invasive traditional endoscopy?
Yes. Most patients visiting the doctor with abnormal gut feelings, in fact, have a normal or a near normal gut lining, and the capsule helps filter out those who would benefit from a traditional colonoscopy from those who would not.
Well, what capsule findings would trigger a referral for a traditional colonoscopy?
Discovery of an abnormality that requires a diagnostic biopsy or removal of a polyp that could develop into a cancer would be an indication. Capsule may also be helpful in patients with typical IBS symptoms, but who are very anxious to undergo an imaging investigation for their reassurance that their symptoms are not due to a more sinister cause.
I get that. It's a new minimally invasive investigation that asks and answers the question, who needs a colonoscopy?
And yes, there are other indications. For example, patients aged 50 and older who present to their GP with gut symptoms, but no red flags, such as rectal bleeding, anemia, or profound weight loss. But they're entering the age group where colon polyps and cancer becomes just a slight concern.
Again, a reassuring investigation. What about screening for bowel cancer?
Well, I think I'll leave a full discussion on the role of capsule endoscopy for bowel cancer screening for another day. But it is certainly worth mentioning that minimally invasive capsule endoscopy is emerging as a very safe and very helpful device to screen healthy populations.
I imagine there might be some misconceptions about this technology. What common myths would you like to clear up?
Yes, certainly. One common myth is that the diagnostic accuracy of the colon capsule isn't as good as the traditional colonoscopy. But studies have discovered that its accuracy is equivalent when it comes to detecting problems like polyps. Another misconception is that the preparation for a colon capsule is so much more arduous than for a colonoscopy. Well, the cleansing process is actually very similar. The only difference is the addition of a liquid booster taken at home to help the capsule complete its journey before the battery runs out.
That's reassuring to hear. And are there any situations where this procedure might not be suitable, or are there any complications we should be aware of?
The key requirement is that you must be able to swallow the capsule normally. In roughly 10% of individuals, patients with slower bowel movement or a uniquely looped colon, these individuals might experience battery exhaustion before the capsule reaches the end of the bowel. This is something we monitor closely, but for most patients, the procedure is really very straightforward and it's extremely safe.
It's good to know that patients presenting with digestive symptoms can have some choice whether to undergo a colonoscopy or a capsule endoscopy. I already understand that capsule colonoscopy is convenient, gentle, very accurate and safe, but lacks the facility to biopsy or remove polyps. I've also heard of CT colonography. In the light of new technologies, can we add this to the list of patient choices?
Yes.
Well, tell me a little more about CT colonography then, please.
CT colonography uses X-rays and computer technology to generate images of the colon and the rectum. And like capsule colonoscopy, this procedure is much less intrusive than traditional colonoscopy, and it can detect polyps, cancer, and a range of other abnormalities.
And are there any downsides?
Well, like capsule, this is a scouting technology with no facility to biopsy abnormal or remove polyps. There are other differences when compared to capsule.
Like?
Well, the CT involves exposure to radiation and, in addition, an injection of a special enhancing agent into a vein prior to the CT scan, and prior to taking a scan, a tube is inserted into the rectum to inflate the large bowel with carbon dioxide.
So why the need for gas inflation?
The large bowel needs to be inflated to allow the CT scanner software to distinguish the large intestine from all the surrounding organs. A further consideration is that research indicates that compared with colon capsule endoscopy, the procedure is less effective in detecting polyps, inflammation, and angiodysplasias.
Angiodysplasias. What are they?
Well, these are fragile blood vessels that are prone to ooze or bleed, and they can't be readily identified on CT colonography, but are readily detected on capsule imaging.
You mentioned safety earlier. Patients considering options will be interested in the safety profile of colon capsule endoscopy.
The procedure is extraordinarily safe. Unlike traditional colonoscopy, the bowel's natural movement propels the capsule, and there is no pulling or pushing. Consequently, the problems that can be encountered during traditional colonoscopy are more or less eliminated.
Such as?
Well, with colonoscopy procedure-related pain, but also the rare but devastating event of bowel perforation. It's rare, but it's devastating when it occurs. As no sedation or painkillers are necessary for capsule, complications from these drugs are completely eliminated.
So let's return to the colon capsule procedure itself. How does the patient prepare for this procedure?
Just remind yourself, the colon is a 5-foot dark tube containing stool. Consequently, cleansing the bowel of its contents prior to the procedure is absolutely crucial.
And how is the colon cleansed?
Well, in fact, colon cleansing starts a few days prior to the procedure by restricting high-fiber foods, and on the day before the procedure, nutrient intake is restricted to clear fluids only. This prepares the bowel for more intense cleansing, and this occurs in the 12 hours prior to swallowing the capsule.
What's used for the more intensive cleanse?
There are really a variety of bowel cleansing preparations. We use a preparation called Plainview. This is a powder that dissolves in water, and a first drink is consumed the evening before swallowing the capsule, and a second drink is taken on the morning of the procedure. This optimizes cleansing, and in most patients, at the time of the investigation, the colon is stool-free.
I've heard there's also something called a booster required for colon capsule. What's that?
The booster is an important part of the process. The miniature capsule camera batteries only store a limited amount of power, Usually sufficient for about 10 hours of bowel illumination and transmission of the video image to the receiver. So the journey from mouth to rectum must therefore be optimized to conserve battery power.
So that's where the booster comes in?
Yes, correct. Adding a booster accelerates the capsule's journey through the bowel.
How does the booster differ from the cleaning solution?
Well, it's a different liquid cocktail of two stimulants that turbocharges and accelerates the movement of the small intestine, and this accelerates the passage of the capsule towards the colon.
But when is the booster cocktail taken?
Well, soon after the patient has returned home after swallowing the capsule.
Now, for a slightly techie question, as the capsule travels through the length of the intestine, how's the video signal processed?
The capsule has got really two miniature cameras mounted on either end and using the same miniaturized technology as a smartphone video camera that you know so well. Illumination is also needed to light the interior of the pitch black bowel, and this is provided by 4 miniature low-energy LED lights.
And the video images transmitted from inside the bowel are transmitted to the outside world by a wireless signal?
Yes. Wireless transmission is possible. It uses a Bluetooth-like connection.
Amazing. And then?
Well, once the capsule has been expelled into the toilet, the transmitted video images are downloaded from the recorder to a PC, where the complete video is carefully examined by trained capsule specialists who then compile a detailed report for your referring doctor. It's possible to examine all the way from the mouth to the rectum.
So how accurate is colon capsule?
Well, studies have shown that colon capsule is highly sensitive for detecting a range of colon pathologies, and this includes benign polyps, cancer, colitis, which is inflammation of the bowel lining, angiodysplasia, which we've already discussed, and diverticulosis.
And what is diverticulosis?
Diverticulosis and diverticulitis describes the condition of inflammation caused by diverticula. Well, a diverticula, they are small bulging pouches that form in the lining of the large intestine. They're very common, and they occur especially as people age, and although they usually cause no symptoms and individuals are completely asymptomatic, they can be a source of abdominal discomfort and occasionally bleeding and, as I've already mentioned, inflammation.
So in summary, the main message is that most patients with gut symptoms have a normal colon or only non-critical findings, and capsule video technology is excellent for flagging any abnormalities that might warrant further intervention.
Yes.
So would you say that for many patients, capsule endoscopy helps decide who really needs a traditional colonoscopy?
Precisely, because most patients have got benign or normal findings. Colon capsule serves as a filtering device. It filters those who need more invasive diagnostic procedures like colonoscopy from those who do not, sparing many patients an unnecessary and more intrusive investigation.
And what happens if an abnormality is detected? Is the next step always a conventional colonoscopy?
Well, in cases where significant abnormalities are found, such as large polyps or suspicious lesions, a conventional endoscopy is recommended. But most often this will be a more straightforward and limited examination of the end of the colon, a procedure that we call flexible sigmoidoscopy. But in some cases, because the disorder is more proximal, a colonoscopy will be necessary for the removal of polyps or for the performance of a biopsy to assess the suspicious or inflamed tissues discovered by the capsule.
And are there any limitations or potential downsides to using the colon capsule?
While it's a remarkable little scouting device, it does have limitations. For example, rarely, even with the booster, the battery may expire before it completes the mouth-to-toilet journey. And if there's inadequate bowel cleansing, the images may be obscured. Additionally, and as I've already mentioned, it spies the landscape, but it doesn't allow therapeutic interventions, which, if necessary, will still require a conventional colonoscopy.
Lastly, Professor, How do patients generally feel about the experience?
Most patients appreciate the relative comfort of the procedure and the advantage that most of the procedure is taken at home. They also like avoiding the rare risks associated with traditional colonoscopy and really appreciate that they can continue some of their daily activities during the test. They don't need to remain in hospital, and it's a great step forward in making digestive health and its assessment a gentle experience.
Well, thank you so much for explaining the ins and outs of wireless colon capsule endoscopy.
I really hope that this discussion helps patients feel more informed and increases their choices when colon imaging is recommended.
I hope you found that really, really interesting as I did, and we look forward to the next discussion.